What? Mika stared down at the vegetable, mouth agape. No! Mika shouted, eyes agape. Wake up, you fucking putz! I don't have any more in me to save us with magic again. The ship is sunk. Swimmers are way past us and don't care. Alongside these rescue ships that don't rescue. So get up! Nothing. Only the glow of the crystal coloring his purple face. He stared at it, cursing it all. Was it worth it? Was it worth it all? He could try to use it. This big, it could have enough magic to carry him off with the axe. Yes, that would be salvation. Sure, he might use some of its magic, but it would be better than losing his life at sea. He reached towards it, moving his hands over the crystal. He could feel the energy. It was intense. Come on, what are the colors again? Was always drilling into my head. It's always like this under pressure. That was part of the business. Always the business. What's the business ever done for me? Fine, a lot, but still, I need to focus. Purple is universal. Rare, worth a lot. That also means I can use it with any rune. Problem is, I can't remember any useful runes. Even if I did, where would I engrave it? On my shoes? Damn it. So, I guess my innate magic will have to do. Will I get burned? This is pretty big unworked Baetylus, especially of this size. I never tried to use those either. It'll probably be fine. As long as I do it slowly, I think. Should be able to sail myself and the equipment, and maybe the orc too, I guess, over to shore without dying, right? Well, trying is better than drowning. Mika concentrated, moving his hand toward the crystal, touching the Baetylus clenched in the orc's dead man's grip, and then power surged through him. This was an attempt equivalent to an unfortunate person from your world bringing a fork to an electrical socket. Yes, yes, that's it. So much power. Unlimited power. Ow, 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 it hurt. Mika pulled back his hand, and the light faded. He was no longer blinded by purple. He looked at his palm, sizzling with purple color under his normally pink skin. Some internal bleeding, great, but he could still feel it, and he wasn't dead, which is always a plus. He rubbed it with his other hand, but it hurt too. He glanced at them again. Why did he have cuts on the back of his palm? They were straight from the middle of his knuckles down to the end of his palm. It was like the skin parted, cut with something impossibly sharp, but there was no blood, no marks of a blade. He glanced down and noticed the Urk had the same marks on his own green, albeit now somewhat heavily burned, hands. He narrowed his eyes. This is related to the crystal's magic somehow? Maybe? But how is making marks on my hands anything at all? Have I ever learned about that? Damn it, I knew I should have listened more to the tutors. Or maybe Dad told me something about this in one of his inane lectures. What if it isn't a Grand Baetylus? Maybe it's some kind of trap room? Did it cast some strange spell on me? What does it do? Am I going to start burning like the orc? Maybe this is the other way. Now I can use it? Should I start making bird sounds like the axe? No, wait. I might burn up. I have no idea how to make any of this work. Mika clenched his hands, closing them on his blonde locks of hair with a very viable intention to pull if things got worse. Only to snap his fist down onto the larger body of the useless green orc beneath him, though all he could feel after doing so was the creature's stern muscles, which didn't make him feel better about himself. The boats are getting farther, and I can't figure out how this Baetylus works. Great, fantastic, awesome. So I guess this is how it ends. Mika lamented, looking into the horizon at the fleeing lifeboats, wishing he had more of that horrible rum that the sailor gave him. Damn it, that Drac is probably on one of those boats, drinking it right now. That son of a... Mika nearly lost his grip on the orc's chest, grasping for the bits of burned cloth on a grin scheme to keep steady until he saw that pair of brown eyes reveal themselves from charred eye sockets. Naraka? Mika asked. Urgh, Naraka confirmed. The large orc straightened itself with a pained gasp, hands still clenched in a dead orc's grip around the shining crystal. The magic fatigued halfling clambered onto the orc's back, hands on his shoulders and neck. Mika pointed towards the nearest fleeing ship. Fetch! Mika commanded. Naraka followed. By the powers of his leg alone, paddling and crashing against the seawater, the orc made more headway than the boats they were soon upon. Mika had to carefully place his legs on the axe, which was somehow still clinging to the orc's back in a strap that seemed burnt into his skin. When the pair was nearly upon the nearest rescue boat, those on it began noticing the strange waterbound duo. Mika glanced into the boat. There was definitely plenty of room left there, probably for those who were left behind. Those manning the oars stared at the incoming sight of a speeding orc carrying a halfling on its back, and silently gave each other the look and started to oar faster. Unfortunately for them, a hand clenched to the side of the low boat, and heaving onto it was a man. He was a drenched, middle-aged man, wearing white and blue robes, a balding head, jingling potions strapped to his sides, and an oversized pack on his back. Ha! I finally... A splash was heard as he was flung backwards. Climbing onto his spot instead arrived Naraka and Mika, beaten, burned, and tired. The two of them stared daggers at the other occupants, who stared back in fear. The pair fell in their place, sitting down on the spot. For a while there was silence. In silence, a lot of things could happen. It's a time where the world that is a person's mind actually has time to think. And thinking, as all great thinkers will tell you, is a dangerous occupation. Slowly, thoughts of what just happened stopped, and thoughts of what will happen started to surface instead. Mika noticed it bit by bit. Watching the group of humans who dominated his boat in number and presence, he could see them turn to whisper and hear fragments of words that slipped out. Orc, omen, war, danger, death. Mika recognized this accelerated lesson in human society. Whenever something was unknown, it had to be gotten rid of. Terribly fear dominated. Terribly and terrible in dominating in general, really. Which was perhaps a smarter inclination than the opposite attitude the orc next to him possessed, who seemed to lack both fear and common sense entirely. But he needed the orc at the moment. He needed someone to carry his things after all, and what he didn't need was a group of stressed up humans attempting to gang up on a wounded orc and his apparent companion, because while he seemed to be able to control the orc, for the most part, Mika was assured it was that much harder to control a gaggle of humans. I am Mika. I am a noble who came to do business in Pilarath. This orc is my slave. Anyone who touches either of us shall find the gravest of fates befall them. Is that understood? All this running did beat the noble out of me. Mika internally smiled, as outwardly he was wearing the most serious of expressions. The humans, in turn, looked at him, and then at each other slowly in some manner of shared understanding. Killing an orc is one thing, but killing a slave, and with the noble right next to him, that would surely be a bad idea. It would be better to simply mind your own business. Mika gazed into their eyes and saw their thoughts align themselves into place. He allowed himself a silent sigh of relief and sat back down, not realizing he stood up to speak until that moment. This was coming up to be such a beautiful day too. He glanced at Naraka, who had already begun fashioning from the remainder of his shirt a kind of wrapper for the crystal, and tying it around his waist so it wouldn't disrupt him bringing up the axe from his back. Whereupon he took up said axe and placed the handle on his shoulder and the blade next to his head, leaning towards it as if it comforted him, the creature, him. Mika smiled. He had earned some time to stop thinking for a bit, he thought. He leaned back against the wooden edge of the boat and took a well deserved nap.